Are we here? Is it actually happening? It's Saturday. It's 11 a.m. California. It's a beautiful day outside. Is it beautiful where you are? I got loaded up here. We're not messing around with the tequila stuff here. I got the shot glass loaded here. For every time I say I'm supposed to take a shot. We'll get into that. I have a whole liter here. Hopefully we won't get too deep into that. Anyway, welcome. This is Saturday. This is our weekly live stream. Tanya reminded me, see, I just said, yes, there's no way. Here we go. So nice. I have to say, like, this thing about drinking tequila at 11 in the morning is strangely alluring. After last week's live stream, I was like, this is not bad actually. I'm not much of a drinker, but this is definitely not going the right direction. I love it. Tanya did remind me about the first time we ever met Dave Smith. Dave was the creator of the MIDI protocol. We made a couple of hardware products with him. He invented a synthesizer called the Prophet. I remember he once said that he felt the greatest achievement in his life was that he got to reinnovate himself twice. It always stayed with me. Like, first he invented the MIDI protocol, built analog synthesizers, then digital happened and analog sort of went out for a while, and then he came back and rebuilt all these beautiful timeless synthesizers. Anyway, the first time we ever met him was at an auction that Tanya, my wife, was hosting. And it was called Just Imagine. It's many, many years ago, 2009, something like that. A lovely composer named Jasper Blanc actually made the theme for the auction as well, way, way back when he was super young. This was the first time I ever met Dave Smith. We were standing out in a vineyard, was talking to a bunch of people and drinking a lot of tequila. And I kind of sort of learning about this like tequila thing. Like, it was really big for him. Brought them to NAMM. Everyone would always drink tequila at NAMM. So it just occurred. Was that little there? I think there was. I just remember it so vividly because we got pretty hammered that night. They kept on playing this sort of Gasolina song. Oh man, I still remember this. And I had 17 shots. I'm not really big of shot drinking. It was just amazing. Tequila is this, no, Gasolina is this thing where you blend tequila and lime juice or something. It was absolutely delicious. Anyway, this was way back when Breaking Bad was playing. And I don't know if you guys recall, but there's a specific scene where Gus poisons the entire cartel. I think I said there as well. Oh my goodness, this is gonna go nowhere good. Where Gus hands a tequila bottle to the cartel and he poisons all of them. And at the end of that scene, Gus sort of neatly takes, he sort of folds a little piece of cloth and then he kneels in front of the toilet and he throws up. That's exactly, I remember that after that evening, I did exactly the same. I got so drunk the next morning, I woke up and I did the exact same thing. I just like took a little piece of clothing, folded it and sat in front. And then nothing happened. So I was just like, I felt so miserable from all the tequila. So I ended up walking around the neighborhood, but only in my underwear. People are walking their dogs and it was not a pretty sight. That's the real story. That was an there. Maybe I said it on purpose just to have another shot. Wow. Well, I'm almost, I did say like no more baby sips and I'm trying my best here. I'm almost through the first one here. Wow. Tequila in the morning. I feel like you guys should be with me. I feel we should be drinking together. I also feel it's very strange just to sit and talk out in the air. By the way, I realized like every Saturday I'm just sitting and talking to myself. So hopefully this is gonna work out. Anyway, welcome to the live stream. I have a couple of things I sort of want to talk about before we really get into it. This has been a very interesting week. I did hear a little there. So should it be like if I say small it should just be a sip, and if I go like full like it should be more of a full shot like that? It's gonna be like some limits to the madness. So I want to show you guys something. This ties into a variety of feedback we've gotten over the last couple of weeks that people really want tempo synchronization. And I wanted to sort of show you guys what we're working on. About half of what we do is really listening to you guys and take the feedback to heart and try to figure out how we can resolve the challenges ahead. And the one thing we've heard most about lately is like people want to be able to tempo sync the time stretcher. It's pretty obvious. So this is a design that I've been working on this week, our lovely programmers as well, and just try to come up with a simple solution to our current time stretcher that will allow you to synchronize to your DAW, that will allow you to synchronize to your parts, and will allow you to do free time stretching as well. Just want to show you guys, if you have any feedback, let me know. I thought it could be interesting just to, someone says full shots. Another person says, if you don't notice most of your own how does this work? You're right, like you're gonna have to call me out on it. Like if I'm just sitting and umming all the time and I'm not realizing it, then just call me out. I'll read the chat here. You're completely right. So let me just finish this shot glass here in respect to that, right? Clearly nailed me again. Full shots. Anyway, this is the time stretcher. It can tempo sync to your parts that have BPM in them. It can tempo sync to your DAW. This is what it looks like. We got some community feedback as well regards to this, and I think it was really important that this is one of those moments where we just have to listen to the community. Like people love their time stretcher, but they want to synchronize no matter what I say about being on the grid and not being on the grid. We'll go into that with the disco today, how important it is to be off the grid. Let's see here. Stephen Merrill says it's 8 p.m. in Andalusia, Spain. No tequila. I'm sorry, Stephen. I love Andalusia, by the way. A lot of beautiful music from that region. Jean-Luc says, oh, a time stretcher that you can add to an automation lane. That'd be cool. That's a good suggestion as well. Building time stretchers is one of the 3 most complicated things you can do when you build an engine, especially if you want to modulate time. We can do it in it right now. We're still working on it to iron out some of the clicks. This is driving me completely mad, but when you build like a sample technology, like hunting for clicks is almost a lifelong kind of journey, like clicks here, clicks there, clicks everywhere. But it's a good point, and you're right, we should be able to automate it. Jacinto Sims 2 says, literally just discovered Soundpaint recently. 1959 guitar is beautiful. A 1959 guitar. Let's just try that one out. That idea. 1959 Swing Master. Let me just see here. Chorus. I swear with some of these older instruments, you can hear time, how time has passed by here. It just has an inherent like kind of vintage kind of deal to it. Very soft sound. See what this one is about. Sweet spot. Hear the noise in there? I love it. The real amps. One thing about Soundpaint, one of the best, and this actually ties together what we did with Dave Smith. when we built the Prophet, Dave was like, why are your samples like limited to a range? And as you guys probably know in Contact, for the most part, 99% of libraries are sort of limited to the natural range of the instrument. Well, this is the guitar a couple of octaves down. It works. That's nice. I remember this one here, 1959. Made a lot of instruments, so sometimes you forget some of the beautiful ones. I always use the heart up here, like liking my favorites. That's a good one. Anyway, back to here. I'm gonna make sure I cover you guys' wonderful comments a little bit better. So Wayne says, no tequila. What has it got to do with anything? Get on with it. Okay. You know, it's also interesting. I kind of think it's interesting to read you guys' comments because, like, you know, one thing is like what you guys write. Another thing is like how it sounds in my mind. I'm sure you did not intend to like say get on with it, but that's just how I hear it. Purple 3T1M3 says, I can't have alcohol with my meds, so I'm living vicariously through you. Cheers. I know that feeling. Michael says, positive unusual number of factors. D-Zone says, what happened to the disco guitar release this week? What happened to the disco guitars release? It's done. Let me just show you what it looks like actually. And we'll be looking a lot at it today. We are always in a flux. Add a little bit of background music here. This is the disco guitar in the background. Development is an eternal chaos. We always learn, there's always things happening. This week we had our own set of unique circumstances, and we just decided to, you know, give it another week. We have a variety of other releases we're working on at the same time. Sometimes they come in strange ways. Sometimes, particularly me, I like to take a step back, just digest it a little more. I was working on this time search of the design. I do all the designs. There was an there in there, and we're out of tequila. So that was the first glass right there. Yes. Oh, that was a cool sound. Maybe we need to make sound with tequila bottles. It just happens. We'll go deep into it. There was a little in there. There was a little that snuck in there. Nesum says, I agree with Wayne and Steven. No tequila. Soundpaint info is what I'm interested in. All right. We'll cool it with the tequila over the next couple of live streams, unless I just get into like this Saturday tequila addiction. Fair enough. This is the disco guitar library right here. And I've been building it over this week. There's a lot that can be done with it. It features, essentially, I went back and I was like, I love disco, and I think it's one of the most profound styles of music that we've heard in a long time. It has had a profound effect on the musical landscape. I made the bold argument that I think it's the most influential music style we've seen maybe in the last 40, 50 years. It gave birth to hip hop, gave birth to house music, gave birth to a variety of modern pop. It's timeless in its essence, and I think it really relates to the 4/4 kind of rhythm behind it. And there are other elements about it as well. It's just a light-hearted style of music, and it seems to evaporate and then come back in new forms. So disco for me is an integral part of the modern music catalog, particularly obviously in rhythmic music. So I've been listening extensively to disco for a long time. We did our disco strings, and now we're into disco guitars. And for me, they're just like about a dozen different songs that I really love in the disco repertoire in terms of how you play guitars. And I got the idea of taking those songs and then playing the riffs, but in tiny micro components, so I could make new riffs out of them. So they're essentially like songs on steroids, where we just took and multi-sampled every single little part of a phrase, so we can now put it together in sort of Daft Punk kind of style. Each fragment is multi-sampled with round robin and all that stuff. We'll get into it. I just like to start the stream a little bit slowly here. We got some socials we got to get into, but trust me, we're going to go deep into the disco guitars. Let's just see. I want to make sure I don't miss too many of the comments here. Time is money. Please let us hear the guitars that you got to offer. Okay, well, someone is asking directly, so no messing around. Let's do it. Let's listen to a little bit of disco guitars. So this is a riff that I played in. And then just add, you know, some drums to it. Pretty simple. This is our Zeus drummer. This is our Model D. Pretty simple. And these are our Rhodes. And our clavinet. That's one example. I have a variety of different examples. I've recorded them into my looper here. I'll play them live as well. So check this one out here. So for example here, this is our Good Times kit. Very simple. I can load up the kit here as well. Drums. The Model D, the best bass synthesizer ever. And I want to talk a little bit, because we talk about the time structure, like with this groove here. Let me just show what it looks like on the keys here if I play. So we have all these different kind of fragments down here. Ooh, that was hot. That was hot. Let me see. I don't want the aim. Times right here. And make sure my transposition is correct. So we have all these different fragments. And they're robin based, so I can really like. And that's essentially the groove here. A little bit of disco strings. We'll come back to that. Let me just have it running in the background. That was just a very quick turbo for someone who just did not want to talk about Tequila and just get the disco strings. Disco guitars, not strings. We should probably cover them as well. Steven says, Denata Troels with white sangria has exactly the same creative effect. Yeah, white sangria. Have I tried white sangria? I don't think I have. You gotta tell me more about that. Aaron says the time structure already compensates for the pitch. Yeah, and we are actually having prototypes of formant and pitch variations in the time structure as well. So that's coming down the line as well. You know, development is crazy. Like you want it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. It's frustrating. We'd like to know about the DAW sync function in Soundpaint. Joe, tell me a little more what you mean with that, because we have several DAW functions. Is it the ARP? Is it something else? LFOs? Daniel says to everyone present, I'm in the market for a 49 to 61 key MIDI controller. Anything the best with Soundpaint in Ableton? That was definitely an in there. I love this key controller right here. This is the Arturia Keylab 649. It's a wonderful controller. It's not weighted, and I kind of like that way, like not having weighted keys. M audio controllers are good as well. I used to be in them as well. I mean, there's so many amazing controllers out there. There's another in there. I go for the more shallow kind of thing. I just like that it looks pretty. It inspires me. It's actually something I wanted to talk about. I had this in my mind before starting the stream today. I met with a dear friend of mine, Benjamin Wolfish, yesterday, and we were talking about like importance of paying attention to small details, like to just tiny little things. In a way, the most important thing is to pay attention to the tiny details. I just say that because I think being surrounded, I don't mean this in a shallow way, but being surrounded by beauty. For example, I work a lot on the user interface in Soundpaint, or have a controller that you find inspiring. I think it helps. It's all those little things together that ends up building something more beautiful. Just like when you're cooking, it may not be that each ingredient is that important, but you use ingredients of higher quality and you put them all together, and the likelihood of having a higher quality meal is higher. One thing I'll say with music in mind is that high production values, if you look across time, the tracks that stood the test of time, they have one thing in common, and that was high production values. Either in the way they were just thought out in the mind, or in the way that they were produced. It reminds me years ago, there's another in there. We did a collaboration with Christopher Young, and Chris said, I still remember this, Tanya and I were in the room. He was like, a good tune has to start in the mind before it comes out in the keys. I was just watching another stream with Pat Metheny, great guitar player, where he was talking about the same, that he has to hear the tune in his mind before it comes out. I don't know why I say that in context to the small, beautiful things, but I think maybe it just starts in the thought and then it grows from there. But surrounding ourselves with beauty is important. I think it helps inspire, and it's not just necessarily music, it can be visuals, plants, nature, all those things. Oliver says, is Soundpaint a reputable company, or is this drinking binge? Oliver, you will have to be the judge of that. I couldn't possibly say that we are a reputable or sound company. That it comes down to whether you like what we do or not. You know, I'm not here to try to sell you either way, man. But I feel you. And if binge drinking is not for you, I'll just say, as someone who generally doesn't drink, it probably won't go overboard. That was another in there, forgive me. I try to take great pride in being disciplined. Maybe that's a part of our reputable company thing as well. Kurt says, I wonder about this instruments based on favorites. Isn't this a bit too limited because you only sample for specific licks? Kurt, you can say that. For me, we have over 4,000 samples in disco guitars. And again, I'll cover it a little bit later in the live stream. For me, it's all I need. And if it was good enough for the most famous disco songs of all time, it's probably good enough for me. I think sometimes with plugins, we get so used to wanting everything. But in wanting everything, we lose so much instead of doing something that's more narrow and really well done. Take a saxophone, for example. You want a classical saxophone? You want a saxophone for jazz? Do you want baritone? Do you want soprano? Do you want alto? Do you want tenor? All of a sudden, it's not the same thing. What style of jazz? Do you want crazy sax? Or do you just want like super soft, smooth jazz? Different ways of sampling. I say that in the most humble way, having done so many libraries, well over 1,000 at this point. You learn some things down the road. And for me, at least at this point, like I try to go more narrow and really do something well. If it was good enough for a dozen of the greatest disco songs, it's good enough for me. D-Zone says, no, a rubbish cook can still burn, spoil expensive ingredients like me with music gear. Get it? Philip says, having this high level of detail with these prices is ludicrous. Thank you, man. That's how we want it. Tanya thought for years about like what would be the right way of doing it. And we had many different models we were thinking about. But ultimately it was for us about, look, people just want to make music and they don't want to consider like price too much. And would it be possible to offer so much beauty for an affordable range? And we thought it was. And one thing, for example, is like everything lives inside of the same user interface. All the instruments can speak together. You can combine different instruments. You can morph them, all that stuff. Tons of thoughts behind that. So I appreciate so much you're saying that, because that's what we want to do. Is it too good to be true? For the most part, it is. Maybe not this time around. We want Soundpaint to be affordable. We're never on sale either, so no FOMO. You can grab disco guitars next week. You can grab it in 2 years from now. Dirk is saying, I'm using a Linstrument often, sometimes with my Motive 88 for piano stuff. See that? Some powerful stuff in the Linstruments. Scott says, acknowledged. Hey everybody, glad to be here. Michael says, hi Troels, with Tequila, less is more. The Soundpaint player and editor support multiple velocity layers on round robins. Do you ever plan to make it available? Good question, Michael. So we have something called ACE, Ace is our advanced sample editor. We're working on it. It's been in production for several years. When it's ready, it'll come out. I'm very much of the philosophy, like when it's ready, it'll come out. Dirk says, I love Soundpaint. Is it a okay, Soundpaint is a reputable company, and I love good drinks. Yeah, that's sort of how I look at it as well. But maybe we're not reputable. Maybe there's something like strange about, like, I don't mind it. I've always said I have no intentions of being number one or being a contact killer or anything like that. That's not why we're doing this. We're doing this for ourselves and for you guys as well, with heart and with the intention of just building a technology that is fully designed with composition and musicianship in mind. Forget about all the rest. Like, it's a specific premise that is about musicianship and heart and soul and the way we produce. Metalor says, in the latest complete contact, you always have to go back to file menu to select another preset. I have Majestic at the choir bundle, some hybrids. They're not in the library tab. I see. Kurt, how do you combine them? What do you mean? Combine different kits? Is that what you're talking? We'll come back to that as well if that's what you're asking. There was an in there. I get to say while I'm reading the chat. Hey, Jan. Okay, I think I'm almost caught up on the chat here. You should say, Philip says you should rather say we are always on sale. Right, we're always on sale. I guess you can say that. Kurt says, what I meant is sometimes accents in a separate part. Like, how do they end up tracking? What I meant is sometimes accents are in a new part. So do they end up as a new track in your DAW? And how do you tackle playing this if you suddenly want to switch between different accents? So Kurt, we have something called key switches inside of the engine, and I'll cover that as well. I can show you with the disco guitars. For example, I have multiple different guitar kits loaded here. Oops, let me just change the UI, what I'm doing. So we have a key switch rack here, and you can build your own key switches, which allows you to switch between different parts. So because we have 8 parts in Soundpaint, we can add 8 different key switches. They're switched down here on the keys. The key switch is a good example. I actually didn't want them in Soundpaint way back. The community felt very different and strongly about it. So that was my loss and my ignorance for not putting in it earlier on. Now we're hearing the same thing with the time structure, so we'd be wise in listening to you guys, because for the most part, especially when we start seeing repeated feedback from the community, we take it to heart. I don't know if this is what you meant, but this is how you can control different parts, trigger different accents. And if you look down here in the keys, let me just get you. Here. Some a little bit down. But you can see as I click the keys right now, I'm choosing different key switches. And when I was doing this, I was like, well, traditional key switches, you can select one. That's how it works in Contact. But in Soundpaint, and this really is useful when you play with ensembles, you can actually choose multiple at the same time, anything you want. So if you have an ensemble of instruments like a flute and a trumpet or whatever, you can either play them standalone or you can combine them as well. So that's kind of neat. Aaron says, I'd rather never on sale because Waves is obnoxious. Just saying. I hear you. Yeah. And when you go subscription, you know, keep the old model in mind as well. I think Waves learned that within 48 hours. DAW function sync. Joe says DAW sync function in Soundpaint. So we have a variety of different sync functions in Soundpaint. We have it on the ARP here. You can synchronize your LFOs. There's a variety of different ways to tempo sync stuff in the engine. So it depends on what we want to sync. I'm still not clear of what you mean. Philip says, it's like an indie game developer. They do it for the love of creating. Philip, you're absolutely right. That's how I think about it as well. For me, I started my career in video games, and I used to think like we got to get focus groups in the room and we got to analyze them to perfection. But that was not what it was about. It was actually the opposite. When you work with real game developers, you realize they built this with their heart. They built the game to themselves. That's how you stay inspired. Exactly like we do with music as well. I think in any trade where we're inspired, we sort of need that feedback loop to ourselves. Otherwise, we're just creating. It feels like work. And it will be reflected in the product as well. One has to love it, and you can't teach that. It's either there or it's not. Painful realization. Angelo Petrucci asks, great tools. Do you have a Model D in your libraries? We do. I so want to show it to you right now, but I promised Tanya not to show too many of like the future projects coming in. Like, yeah, we have a fantastic Model D. Jimmy spent a couple of months on deep sampling it, and it's exquisite. You can hear right here. There's only one Model D. So Kurt says, maybe this is not for me. Do you end up with separate MIDI tracks in your DAW for each part? I don't know what that means. Aaron says, even when you guys add a feature that you didn't plan to add, end up implementing in a way that makes more desirable. Thank you, Aaron. Like, you know, we try to really, that's why I kind of wanted to show you the time stretcher as well. Let me just put it back here, so you guys can see it as well. It might be that you guys see something that I don't see, or that the team don't see. And why not just put it out there? Why not just learn together? I think it's so much more powerful to have the IQ of an entire community added to your development instead of just being ignorant of it. You guys have some fantastic proposals. The key switch is just being one of them. You know, that came from the community as well. We just added, by the way, in the latest version of Soundpaint, this icon here. It was always there, but another example of development, we were like, well, back in the day, if you right click here on the UI, you would get this, like, you can move all key switches, but like how many people would know you can right click? So I was like, let's just add an icon. You can click here and then you can move your key switches down and up here. If you look down on the keyboard on the blue thing here, you'll see that it's moving down here. So this is a way you can move your key switches around. I'm not the biggest fan of key switches. I think they are polluting the production. The keyboard, especially when we work in the DAW, is like the last sacred part of music making we have left that's not polluted with engineering. But we have them, and they do serve their place. I tend to not use them too much myself, because I just want to have free access on the keyboard. But I see great value in them, particularly for people working with more complex instruments and stuff. Joe says, presets such as instant guitars don't sync with the DAW when using the ARP. It negates the preset. So Joe, you're right. And I want to comment a little bit on that. That's also why we're looking at the time stretcher here as well. A lot of people want to have that ability. The only thing I'll say with all these the same with disco guitars here. If you, let me just try to beef up the volume here. Let me show you something. So we have a drum group right now. And I'll just load the good times we had from before. I will always play this in my hand. For me, it feels better that way. If I put it on a grid, it will sound like it's put on a grid. And I promise you, if you listen to any like top 10 track right now, you'll notice that none of them are really on the grid. They're all played in hand. And I can't say it enough, and forgive me for my redundant repetitions in all these live streams. Working on the grid is not always wise. I mentioned Dave Smith in the beginning, who invented the MIDI protocol, who is my mentor. I often joked with Dave about saying that quantize was the worst invention for music. I've used it so much myself in the past. For the most part, when I work in the DAW, I don't quantize anymore. I might quantize a couple of elements just to have something static on the beat, but Here's another one. So again, disco guitar is just played straight in. And you can hear it's not perfect. That's sort of the whole point about not being on the grid. So Angelo, disco guitar is coming out next week. That's why we're demoing it today. The Model D is on its way. Okay, I'll just because Angelo is asking, let me just show. Forgive me, but I do want to show like just a little sneak peek at the Model D. I made this pad that I thought was like one of the most smooth things I'd heard in a long time. Let me see here. Move. Oh man, this one here. Especially when we add like the calf filters to it. That the D is okay. So the Model D is a monophonic synthesizer. I do personally believe it is the Stradivarius of synths. I can't explain like that in the CS80, maybe the Prophet 5 as well. There's a couple of them that are just in that family of timelessness. Because it's monophonic, it's really interesting to hear what it sounds like polyphonically, because we've never really heard that before. In this case here, I have 4 different Model Ds loaded that will each play polyphonically, running through our upcoming CS80 calf filters. Crazy spoiled privilege, but check it out. A monophonic synthesizer, 4 of them, but playing polyphonically. Each note is like a full dish of like butter chicken right there. So Jean-Luc is asking, can you do the opening for Tom Sawyer? We can absolutely do the opening for Tom Sawyer. That was played on an Oberheim, if I remember right. We're doing all of them. Prophets, Oberheims, all of them, and we're building respective calf models as well. We just do them in some random order of which ones I like the most. I just happen to really love the CS80, the Model D, obviously the Prophet, the Oberheims. So much stuff. I'm truly a kid in a candy store. I realized I probably said a million times, so I'll finish my shot glass with that in mind. Should we listen to a user demo? I was kind of thinking about today about checking up a little bit, so we'll sort of DJ back and forth between different things. We have a handful of user demos. It's always good to listen. You guys just tell me. This is a free stream. I have no particular deep agenda, though I do have one thing I want to show you guys. I thought it could be interesting as well in these streams to not always just talk about music. I love working with visuals and graphics just as much as I do with music. And this week I had a particular revelation with my camera as well, but I will come back to that. Let me see if I can bring up a few demos here. Tanya says play disco guitars more. So we do that. Let me just listen to one user demo T and then we'll come back to that. Let's see here. Let's start with this one. We just got this one submitted last night. It's called The One Who Fell by Dragon Dreams. That would be from our Claire Win series in Soundpaint. Or ADO. Tony's asking what looper I'm using. I'm using the Boss RC505 Mark II. Yeah, Philip, I'm sorry. I turned blip mode off for, for this video here. You know, it's funny, when we made the blip mode, I actually thought the community, there was going to be like half of people actually wanting it, but there was a pretty resounding feedback. It was a horrible idea. Rip. This is a beautiful composition to me. It's very simple, and the flute is so expressive and emotional that I'm kind of just there. It works. Let me try to load that flute actually. Hold on, let's get back to this here, because it is a beautiful flute. If I'm right and not mistaken, it's coming from our flute Platinus here. Let's just load a legato. I love this patch here. This is a sort of throwback to James Horner. Marissa says it's coming from our alto flute. Got it. Let's compare that. So this would be the same Horner nostalgia, but on the alto flute. We'll notice that time is moved up here a little bit, so the vibrato speed of the play. So sweet. And with another mic. When I listen to this alto flute, which is one of my favorite recordings of woodwinds that we've done, it reminds me about the universal truth of sampling from me, which is it doesn't matter what hall we recorded in, it doesn't matter what fancy specs, what microphones, none of that really matters. What matters is the emotion. That's what we're connecting to. Listen to all your favorite music and likely draw the same conclusion. It's all about emotion. The hall, the microphones are there to capture that emotion if it's done the right way. In this case here, just a really beautiful, exaggerated, almost desperate form of vibrato. Oh yes, of course, yeah, Braveheart. Something like that. Yeah, it's such a good theme. It's one of my favorite themes, the Braveheart theme. Anyway, disco guitars. I keep seeing in the chat. Let's get back to it. This is what it's about. That's what we promised. So let's just take a look at what it's all about. We have all these different kits here. As I mentioned, took my favorite disco songs, particularly with guitar riffs, and just started recording them in great depth. So if we take one kit here, let's take, for example, Le Freak, which you guys obviously know. And let me show you the patch from ground up. So in the very bottom here, let me see my transposition. Okay. So all the way down here, just little effects. And as you'll notice, it's never the same even when you repeat it. These are all round robin fragments. So very small fragments. And the idea is that we can combine all these fragments as we want. So for me, I'll look around for different kind of fragments that I like. We can also put them on the grid. We can actually put them in the arpeggiator as well. So for example, if we have the arpeggiator here, so right now we have these small sort of improvisations. You'll notice them down here on the keyboard. So I'm just holding down the ARP right now. And we can record that into loop, but let's just make a groove with it. So I have that in looper right now. Super simple. And I like to use the library in terms of having certain things play and then just add a little more. So for example, we have specific kits that only has wah-wah in it. Really just play it with a real old school wah-wah pedal. This is all vintage sampling, so everything is going through the real amps or DI as well. You'll notice that the library is divided into two different kind of styles. We have DI kits for more clean modern, and then we have vintage amps, which has a little more crunch, sweet, warm overdrive. And that's essentially it. And then I'll just add from here. Just find a drum kit, or I'm kind of like... I'm just catching up here on the chat. Michael Modern says it's like output arcade but real analog sound. That was definitely right there. As I needed time to digest that thought. So Soundpaint is like arcade but with analog sound. Sure, let's just say that. Arcade is a very different approach. It's more about like loops in traditional sense, like dragging, dropping loops. More minimalistic approach to instruments. Soundpaint is a little bit, for me, in the opposite ballpark in terms of going all the way down to ultra deep sampling and really extensively try to record instruments in their greatest depth. It's a different approach. I don't want to say there's any right or wrong way of doing things. Just like when it comes to DAWs, there's so many different DAWs we can use, Cubase, Ableton, Logic, whatever. It doesn't really matter, they're all amazing, and so are the samplers as well. Our approach is about going deeper, and I just have a thing. I'm a fidelity whore, if you will. When I play video games, I love games that look super real. When I shoot pictures, you'll see that a little bit later in the live stream. I love having things that are like really real and tangible. I want to see like things, little scratches on the lens and stuff. For me, it's the same with instruments. For example, everything we're looking at, like the disco guitars, these fragments. In a traditional, like if you were to download these on Splice or whatever, you would have like maybe, I don't know, 50 different kind of guitar samples. This case is over 4,000 because I want it to be more alive. It just makes a difference to me. We're all about musicianship and going that extra mile to get realism in there. And the whole technology is not even just the samples. It's from the sessions, make sure they're emotional. It's to build a technology that's musicianly, why do you say that? That's just rewarding as a musician, something you can feel. In this cold digital age with touch screens, which I think is the worst way of making, for me at least, it's only me, my opinion is no more worth than yours. But for me, I can't express to a flat glass plate. I need something tactile. Give me buttons, give me keys, give me something I can communicate on. Soundpaint is the same. It's really the idea of getting deeper into the sound so we can touch it and we can feel it, if that makes any sense. So while I appreciate the comparison to arcade, I would almost put us on the opposite side of the aisle. It is certainly about the real analog sound, but when it comes to, let's just take, I have the Jupiter loaded right here. It's not about sort of emulating or recreating it. It's about having it exactly 100% like it is. So no matter what patch we play, you hear all that dirt? You can hear there's kind of noise in there. That's coming from the actual unit because we don't noise reduce them. You can hear the age in the sound, and particularly with vintage units because the actual elements inside of them will degrade over time. This is what it truly sounds like. And for the most part, people will do wavetables or do a more simplistic form of sampling. We tend to go all the way down and sample these chromatically. So every single key in the synthesizer as it actually is. For me, it makes a big difference. I can just feel it more. Like this one, just one note, and hear the noise in the top. I just know that's exactly what it sounds like. No emulation, no simulation, no whatever. It's actually the real thing. That's what Soundpaint is about. So if I could draw that comparison, we're really trying to make it as realistic as possible. We're just playing with legato flutes. The Model D down here. Now, we're spoiled because it's not just that we have the Model D with the correct filter or whatever. We can also throw an Oberheim on it. See what would happen if we have more resonance. totally spoiled. Back to disco. I mean, super simple, just played in a groove, just a couple of different samples. Sometimes I'll take different kits from disco. You'll see that in the tutorials as well, and then I'll try to mix different kind of kits together. Very simple, but it's real. There's natural imperfections. It wasn't perfectly recorded on the grid. Beware of the grid. The grid is good for like solar power, not for music. Bill says, had a friend produce a song for me and he degridded my piano, said he hated the perfection. That's such a good comment. You know, what good is being on a grid? Like what good could possibly come out of taking something so beautiful as a piano and put it on a grid? Herbie Hancock once said music is a reflection of life. And I think even at the lowest level of samples, that's just as important. So you're right. Like get that piano off the grid. As if we were playing exactly at the same time and in compartmentalized things. The best way of describing this is a groove. Let's just make one. Let's just do this from scratch. Let's just make a drum groove, because I think this will exemplify. We'll take like just something like if you want to make like a drum machine, sure, there may be a time where you want to warrant like having everything on a perfect grid. For example, like this guy here. Now, that is especially helpful because we have multiple round robins and these guys here. But if it was for me, if I was to create a groove, I would never ever put it entirely on the grid. And let me just exemplify. Let me see how much you can see of the looper. I'll try to work up here on the loops here. This is my little hardware looper, and I'll show you what I mean. So sometimes it can be okay to have a certain element on the grid. So if we take, for example, just a hi-hat here. Let's see here. Take an 808. This is the spoiled part. Like, I love the 808 hi-hats. I just keep coming back to it. The best hi-hat ever made. So I can do that in the groover, like. So now this is perfectly looped. If it was me, I would probably like, actually, even for this single hi-hat, just playing. Now we have natural variations in this hi-hat because they're analog. So there's over 100 variations of this hi-hat here. So for that reason, it's easier on the ear. Just trying to capture in the looper here. Again. Okay, so we have in the looper right now. So we can already hear that it has a human element because that clap did not land on the grid. And I mentioned this in the last stream as well, but try to listen to this hi-hat right now. Let me just try to play it faster for you. This is really where Soundpaint and this like ultra deep sampling kind of craze starts paying dividends. So let me beat this up to 32. You hear how like it doesn't sound super repetitious. So that's analog for you. And I'll compare that with a sample that is static, where there's only one sample playing at any time. So let's see here. This one here. You can hear it's a machine. It's the same sample, like repeated over and over. And if you go back to the 808 and compare that, you can hear the natural variance. So if you want to put stuff in the grid, ideally do it with an analog component because it's just more alive that way. Does this make any sense? I hope you guys can hear it. Or maybe I'm just officially losing it. I'm down in the tequila again. What's going on? What is going on? Okay, I'm just catching up here on the. I went down my deep sample rabbit hole here. Let's see here where we are. Billy says, had a friend produce a song. That's one we went through. Oh, the lick, Steve, you're right. The lick. I've gotten that on a couple of others. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I mean it works. That's a good thing, right? Antilopic says post-custom dequantization. I love that. Sounds very like smart and sophisticated. The PCD technology. Kurt says the best grooves are off the grid. They are. And Kurt, forgive me, that's actually the one I wanted to say before. Like with a real groove, it's imperfect. A real drummer, the pocket, imperfection. You want perfection, use a drum machine, and then in a weird way that becomes imperfect. You're absolutely right. The groove is the best way to exemplify it. Someone has a groove, it's theoretically imperfect, but that's what makes it so perfect. And I would also say, for those of you guys who worry about AI and all that stuff, that's exactly the type of shit it can do. So there's not so much to worry about. When it comes to the finer or the higher arts, it's just about using our hands, think about it this way, like for everything you put inside of the DAW, if it's on a grid, it sounds more and more like a computer. The more and more we loosen it from the grid, the more and more it sounds like you. What do we want to sound like? I would want to sound like me, hopefully, most of the time, unless I'm having a bad day, which does happen. Scott says, mentioned it last time, I think. Yeah. The difference is amazing, clear to hear. Yeah, the variance almost makes it feel not quantized. It's true. I mean, I've had this hi-hat running here in the background. You notice how it didn't disturb when I was talking? That's analog for you. It's really that simple. You can exemplify it just by playing a single sound over and over. Anyway, I have something I want to show you guys. So, as I mentioned earlier on, I have too many camera angles here. I'm trying to find what I want to show you guys. Here it is. So, this is a little bit like just see it as a little break. So, I have this puzzle that I got for Christmas by my son called Shit Show. And what I realized is the guy who made it, like certain parts of the pieces are completely identical. So it's nearly impossible to actually make it work. So in that process, I've tried for several weeks to solve it, and I just kind of gave up. I was like, okay, like this is a shit show. If it won't work the other way, then I'm just gonna force the pieces in and make it like that will complete the puzzle. And I took a bunch of pictures in the process because it just inspired me. For me, music, visuals, same thing. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to like have fun with these pieces and kind of just like do something completely different with them. I was imagining like what it would look like if I could make the puzzle seem like it had a wave in it. Just try different kind of things. I just thought it was interesting to like try to break up the puzzle and put it together the wrong way, and just have my pool table balls just break through the different kind of waves and just see what came out of that. And then I was like, well, maybe the pieces belong where the balls belong, and I should reverse the whole concept. And just maybe the pool balls was supposed to be on the outside and the pieces on the inside. But then I was like, well, you know, maybe what would happen if I made like almost like a little bird's nest, so the pool balls would lie amongst the puzzle pieces like little birds in a nest? What would that look like? Then I started throwing like the pool balls into the pieces of the shit show as well. And then I made the little nest. Like I thought about little birds like cozily just lying in a nest. You know, what would that be like? And that was the shit show. It may be I do I do another episode in terms of how this evolves. I just found it. I'll never get political on this stream here, but I thought for me it was this. It reminded me about like the sign of the times where we are. Like, you know, like these are strange times to be alive, and maybe the puzzle is put together the wrong way or something. I don't know. That was just a little sidekick. I love working with visuals. It inspires so much in terms of music. We can talk about food in context of music, visuals in context of music. It's more or less the same thing. Anyway, where were we? The grid is boring, someone says. Chris, yeah. Joe says, will Soundpaint have multi-instrument function in the future? Multi-instrument function. Joe, tell me what you mean with that. I assume you mean like multi-timbral, so we can have like multiple different MIDI channels. Is that what you mean? And Talopic said, how do we get rid of tempo? Like, a looper is a really good idea because you don't set a tempo on the looper, you just record. That's one of the reasons I like using it. It actually makes me a lot better of working off the grid by having a looper, because the DAW for me is too many clicks, takes too long to get into it. Just use a hardware looper or an equivalent piece of software. Joe says multi-output. Right. You know, let's get into that actually, Joe, because like we got some interesting comments this week on socials, and I've collected all of them. Do you want to read them with me? Every week we go through different kind of comments from socials, and there were some comments in this regard as well, and I would love to address that. Your question is very relevant and important. Let me see if I can find it here in my countless... Okay, here we go. So I have these different kind of comments from socials, and I almost should see, let me see if I can stop in certain ways. Trying to figure out the specific, let me just comment on the different comments here. So someone said they were crazy for the jingle. We had this specific thing for Vivaldi where I did this. It's going a little too fast for me right now. How could you cook this down to around 5 minutes? That's how long I'm spending. Okay, so someone was commenting on the live stream. They wanted me to cook it down in 5 minutes. This thing is running too fast. I can't comment this fast. Hold on. I need to slow down my inadequate preparations. Video, social media. Advanced. 2 seconds. I have to slow down these comments. They're running a little too fast for my taste here. I'm gonna put 20 seconds on each. Then I can finally calm down. Dance, monkey, dance. You know, doing this live stream stuff is really interesting because like you definitely learn your limits as a human octopus. So anyway, these are comments that we got on socials. I've slowed down the pace a little bit so I can actually read what they're saying. Someone said that they were crazy for a jingle. We had this, as I mentioned, for Vivaldi, we had this unique harpsichord piece of music. I should probably see if I can dig it up. That was very sweet. But we got some interesting comments in terms of what Joe mentioned. And that's what I sort of want to aim at in terms of like multiple outputs. We'll get to that as we get into it. So Scott says, honestly, this did not entice me at first, as I thought it might be a little narrow in my uses. I accept all my judgment for uses now as Soundpaint become my main practically DAW. Scott, I realize you're probably here on the stream still. I'm starting to feel the same way. Even just sitting here with a looper and just making music so much fun and so much faster. Okay, and then someone was commenting on the live stream here that they wanted me to condense the live stream down to 5 minutes. That's gonna be hard. I wouldn't be able to ramble, and it would be too produced. That's why we have other videos where we are in short form. All our tutorials are that way. Oh, and then Rob mentioned on our disco strings, we have these disco strings out there that the record was spinning the opposite way. I mean, this is the type of feedback we get every week we have to deal with. And I looked at the video, and to me, maybe it's another video, but it seemed to, I think, Rob, like, we're living on opposite sides of Earth. Someone says cheers. That was like a sip or two. I know, I don't know how I could do a live stream in 5 minutes. It would be very short. Let's see here, but we got some spicy ones. I'm looking forward to this. I'm crazy for this jingle. Why is that? Keeps going here. Another one in that. Let's make sure I got all of them. One more. Seeing a few things go in a circle here. Anyway, let me just address it. As someone was saying this week, and I thought I put the chat up here, that they could not recommend Soundpaint to their producer friends, and I thought it was such a good comment. We'll see if it pops up here. I'll just start addressing it, Joe. So when it comes to multiple outputs, there's multiple reasons for us not being able to do that. When we initially started with Soundpaint, we had our own proprietary audio format called RTS. RTS, for different reasons, did not allow us to do that. It's a complicated technical thing. We can actually do it in PCM. We can have multiple outputs. But if you speak to a company like Apple, for example, they advise people making samplers and DAWs not to go into this output thing, because ideally that's something that's controlled in the DAW in the way it assigns different kind of cores. And it's always hard when the community wants one thing, and from a technical point of view, we're hearing it differently. Like, you would imagine like multiple outputs. Like this guy said, like he could not recommend Soundpaint because he couldn't put multiple outputs on our drums. And there's a million different kind of pieces of software out there that does that. This was in context to last week's release called Sue's Drummer. And for me, let me just show Sue's Drummer actually. Like, I just wanted to have something that I can play with like immediately. Multiple outputs is great, and there's so much software that can do that. But for me, I just want some kits that are produced right out of the box. I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to pretend to be a drum engineer that takes about 10 years to get really good at it. I can just play and have fun. So let me just take you briefly through a couple of the Sue's kits with that in mind. There's no outputs on anything. These kits are just produced to work right out of the box. So I can make music and I don't have to worry about anything else. Should we have multiple outputs? Probably. Will we get it down the line? I'm pretty sure we will. But is it super important to me? Not so much, in consideration of all the other pieces of software out there that can already do it. Like for me, I would much rather have, for example, the ability to open my hi-hats gradually when I play, like you do in a real drum kit, then I would want multiple outputs, but that's just me. Like check it out here, the difference between the traditional hi-hats here and then the hi-hats up here if I'm not. Another thing about playing drums on a keyboard is to use the little ghost accents. So often up here, like these little guys. Anyway, drums. Let's get into disco more, because I feel we've been ignoring that, and that was the big promise and premise of the stream today. I have a variety of mini demos. I have like maybe a dozen of them ready. So with this particular groove here, I just took a random phrase in the disco guitar kit, and then I was like, I wonder what it would sound like if I could make like filmic disco. So I just made this strange thing, just repeating two different kind of random samples. It could have been just like, and then just adding a bunch of delays to them, and then just getting this sort of texture. And then I was like, okay. Add a little bit of CS80 to it. Like, is there such a thing as filmic disco? And I mean, this is so spoiled. This is the CS80 and the Model D combined. And you can hear how imprecise me playing that disco guitar is. It's not on the grid or anything. But all of a sudden when you add the groove, it becomes more alive because it was played in hand. You know what I mean? And then, as I mentioned earlier, like, I think it's super important that we have the melodies in our mind. So when I listen to this, I got this is the melody I heard in my brain. This weird. So, filmic disco, if you will. So you can see how simple it is. The way I use the disco guitars is just to keep noodling around with different kits. We can try something else. That was just a little live jam. Just keep the groove going here. Bass tracks. Hi, good to see. It says groovy. I would love to have some sort of plugin to have looping functionality you're doing in the hardware. Fun. Right. So would I. Carl says, read about multi-out, get the point about it, but a good workaround could be to MIDI dissolve per note, commit to each separate track solo, which opens up a separate further processing. Yeah, I hear you. Like, the multiple outputs is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it creates issues in the DAWs, it creates issues in the way we work sometimes. It has issues from a technological point of view, but you know, we can do it. And to many people's point of view, we've gotten used to having different outputs and putting a little bit of reverb on the snare and all that stuff. I just think there's so much software already doing that. And for me, I never really use it. And I'm certainly not a drum engineer either. Why am I even trying to be when I can just have something that works straight out of the box? Inspiration, I find like, even with Soundpaint, the more times I have to click on something, the more I'm removed from it. So in Soundpaint, we always count the amount of mouse clicks to get to do something and minimize that to the maximum. That is sort of the idea of shortening from the idea from your thought to your creation. It's deeply embedded in everything we do. So it's almost like a philosophy. So Michael's asking, is a copyright problem? There would be a copyright problem if we were actually sampling from the records or if we were doing full kind of phrases, whatever, but not. These are not that. These are individually that they're so chopped up, so you can virtually create anything you want. Like it's down to this. And the idea is that you can really combine it any way you want. Let me put the groove back here. And you hear that? It's not the same. So when you play the same note over and over, you get that natural human variation. Uh-oh, did I? I'm sorry. Thank you. On the disco guitars as well, we have these improv. That was not that one I caught. That was definitely right there. So in the very upper part of the keyboard, you'll notice that we let me switch to another view here. You'll notice that we have these improv extras here. These are like designed to be added to the Carl is asking, was that a gammeldansk? No, I cannot drink that. Gammeldansk is a aquavit. In Denmark, there's like a hardcore kind of alcohol that's consumed around Easter time. Carl, this is tequila. Not too. I mean, it's still a lot of alcohol, but like I can't drink the schnapps or the aquavit. It's too much for me. So it's so simple. This is really. And also in using disco guitars, I learned like a lot of the times it's very, very simple. You don't want to add a lot more in this. But we can also try something else. And if it's a little bit too fast, you can always use time stretching here. So Tony's asking, how do you do real-time key changes on disco guitars? So each of the kits are, you'll notice up here, are recorded in a root key. So this would be E, for example. And that's it. We have other guitar libraries where we offer all the different chords. But for me, if it's good enough for that song, it's good enough for me. So instead of going too deep and recording every single chord variation, we wanted to make more different kind of variations of the same groove in the same key because it was good enough for that song, it's good enough for me. But then also offer different kind of kits. So for a lot of the demos I did for disco guitars, I would use little fragments from different ones. We can try to do it right now. So let's just start again. Let me just load another random kit here. You will notice like our BPM right now is 115, but this one is recorded at 124, so we need to come down a little bit here. And even just like a little, just fun little sound. We hear how it's sounding alive already. In this case, I can hear the slur in my voice. The tequila is starting to play a role now. It's actually happening. In this case here, I was using two different kits in the key of E as well. So they just belong together. But this is really how it's designed to be used. Freely use the different kits together. There's no right or wrong. I think maybe like in a way, this is also where Soundpaint stand out. Like we're not trying to create tools that can just be thrown on a grid and create static, boring MIDI music that sounds like it was produced by an AI, but rather just have like cool, fun, bubbly, alive tools that we can use freely. Yeah, that was definitely a bye to James Bond. And everyone, hi Jimmy. I'm so glad to see you on the channel. I was playing with your beautiful Moog Model D a little bit earlier on, and I think Dan and I have been talking a lot about this guy here. It is just pure joy. I promise Tanya not to show too much of future libraries because like there's so much coming down here, but like this sound here, just for you, Shim. Oh, this reminds me, Bill Conti, one of the great film composers, made a disco version of James Bond for Your Eyes Only. There's a couple of others from that era as well. It's a phenomenal soundtrack. And he used this particular sound. This is going down the wrong rabbit hole. Next groove. So this one I love. In disco guitars, we recorded specific like wah-wah pedals because I just love them so much. And when you record with a real old school wah pedal, like things are just different. So I just created this groove here. Oh, Roger Moore, yeah, you're right, Carl. You're right, that was a great Bond movie. So with this one here, I was like, okay, I have this weird like wah-wah groove made with the disco guitars. You can hear them here. And again, the idea is really that you combine your own grooves together because they're multi-sampled. So, very simple. And then in the style of like early 80s electro, I took the 808 from Soundpaint and combined it with our 522 drum kits. And then there's another synth we're working on, which is the ARP 2600. And I made like an arpeggiator groove, and all of a sudden it sounded more like late 80s, early 90s Enigma. So I was like, okay, like what would work with that? If we're in the style of Enigma, like that used to use like Gregorian chants and like Native American singers and like indigenous instruments, like what would work? And I was like, well, we're working on this new Duduk instrument. And what would happen if I added Duduk to disco guitars and it's so simple. We had the disco guitar. We have the 808 for claps and hi-hat, and then the 522. Oh, the clap is from the 522. And an arpeggiator. And then our upcoming Duduk Virtuoso, which is how Duduk is supposed to be sampled. Took a couple of tries to get it down. You know, it's just to show you guys like that there's many different ways we can do things, and when we have a library called Disco Guitars, it doesn't have to be used that way. But these were just like old school, and I like wah-wah guitars. Aaron is saying PCM can't morph yet. You're absolutely right, Aaron. It sounds like you're on our dev team. We know that wasn't a, well, I just said but I just sipped right before that. Is that okay? You're right. We know morphing can be done in PCM. It's very tricky, and just to offer perspective on these things. For example, our time structure took almost a year to build our high-res time structure, and as I showed earlier in the stream, we're working on making improvements to that as well. It all takes time. So to build something like morphing in PCM is very complicated because it's natively spectral, which is our original RTS format. So in order to do that, we may be looking at another year of having a brilliant person, in this case, Peter on our dev team, work on it. Peter, that was an M in there. Peter, one of our lovely developers, has spent decades on working with these things, and it's very deep, very complicated technological stuff. It's all the stuff you guys don't want to hear because it's like boring dev stuff, but it's very real when you're on the other side of the fence. One of my hopes with these live streams is also that we can just learn to speak together, community to developer, and offer you guys some insights into like sometimes what's seemingly simple as an idea is very, very complicated from a development point of view. Even the UI itself in Soundpaint, it's actually one of the most time-consuming parts. You wouldn't imagine like, well, building legato or time stretching is difficult, but even having a UI, especially one that can scale, so you can stretch it, all that, takes years to get these things down. So it's a very humbling process, and to some degree we're moving slower than I would like it, but that is the pragmatic reality of developing. I hope this makes sense to you guys. Ezone says, best April Fool's was the Clap Studio releasing a one-handed clap machine. Oh, I used to do that. I had a demo way back, Ezone, where I wanted to show how much could just be done with one clap. Maybe we should bring that back as well. Like there's so much inside of a single sample that can be extracted from it. And in a way, we're playing around with that in Soundpaint as well. Carl says, Aaron Moon, I think the 3 Duduks are available already in the last... You're right, Carl, but this is not coming from the 3 Duduks. In fact, this is coming from an upcoming library called Duduk Virtuoso with one of the leading Duduk players in the world. He's of Armenian heritage. His dad builds, actually as a family, they've been building Duduk flutes for the last 3 family generations, and just a whole other level of thinking about Duduk. Let me just offer a perspective. For example, when you play Duduk, this is Mir, the Duduk player. I recorded a variety of pictures. We're building this new thing into Soundpaint as well. You can see it here where we can go in and look at session pictures in the engine. This is coming very soon as well. I absolutely love it because it brings me closer to the player, that we can go in and see what happened in the sessions, and we probably will add video to that at some point as well. Phenomenal Duduk player. I asked him, and you'll see that in the videos as well. He has over 50 Duduks, all carved out from the root trunk of the apricot tree. Anyway, let me not talk, just play a little bit with it. For example, this little like ornament here is specific to Armenian Duduk playing. Beautiful little vibrato on the tail. This is one of the many different kind of legatos, but this is a cinematic style legato. Real human in there. Something that's insanely hard to do on a Duduk is to bend notes. So this is a glissando, very, very tricky to sample. I'm just gonna play a half a note up here. He's such a good player. And we can play it polyphonically as well. I'm curious what Hans Zimmer is going to do with the Duduk ensemble for the next Dune. Obvious in my opinion. Aaron, this Duduk is tuned specifically to Western scale. And just let the note ring out. Notice how expressive it is on the mod wheel too. Carlos asking, are you guys gonna work on making SP Osmose compatible? We are working on MPC integration. You may know that with our new CAF filter that we have polyphonic aftertouch as the first out of many steps towards the road to MPC. MPC requires 16 MIDI channels in order to work. You may know that it's polyphonically limited to 16 voices. Within that, you can of course do so much. We need to make Soundpaint multi-timbre, which it actually was in the early beta. There's a lot of complications to MPC integration. We could only do it in PCM as well. That cannot be done in our native RTS format. Again, developer talk, but in RTS, all streams and voices are combined into one. That's how we can morph without killing the computer. PCM, it's per voice, so it's more conducive to MPC integration as well. That make any sense? I know. Forgive me for like technical rambling. So Tony, in regards to disco guitars, we're still thinking about the price somewhere between like 30, something in that range. It's about 4,000 samples worth. We always try to keep it affordable. Big Brain says, great, still going. I'm just making it in today. Hi Big Brain, welcome. So simple, right? And I want to say, when you use disco guitars, like if you have more than one element stacking on top of another one, it's too much. There can only be like one element playing at any time. Like even this is like pushing it. So add a Model D and a Jupiter 8 and we got. Yeah, Jackson's, yep, big inspiration. Okay, I agree, Aaron. We have a couple of user compositions. I might actually take a couple of them if I like what I'm hearing in a given fragment and throw them in the looper as well. But Aaron is suggesting let's listen to a couple of user demos, and I think that's a good idea. Let's begin here with Paul's Music Company. It's interesting. It reminded me a little bit about the Succession theme. I don't know why in the beginning here. For me, the drums Tequila's kicking. The drums could use a little bit of work. Oh shoot, hold on. Thank you for pointing that out. I need to update 2 things here. It's a weird issue I have in OBS. Whenever I'm playing stuff, it's not always updated. So forgive me for that. Noticing that. Let me just see here. Back here. It works. Yeah, should be better now. Thanks for seeing that. I think I'm only on my 3rd tequila shot, so it's like, we should be good. And I'm sure there's been way too many that I need to make up for anyway. So I like Paul's music company here. It's beautiful. That first part, like, there's something about that initial, like, oops. So I took this fragment here, grabbed it and put it in the looper. I love just having fun with fragments. We can take another one here from the same demo. Let's just try again. Let's see here. It's a little short. Speaking, Steve, if you're still here, you made this beautiful track called Melodia Mortem. And yet had this beautiful, towards the ending, this part here. I thought that was so pretty. So if I remember right, I had a demo here. So I looped the segment here, and then I was like, added this to it. It's almost like more shuffle. And then I heard this melody. That's using our alternative ensembles here, the Cymbalon ensemble. I love you're doing these super cool like runs. I'd be curious to how you did these like. I take you have some form of percussive background. Like it's cool, very marchy. Here's another demo from this week as well. This would be AE by Rand. Yeah, Fabian, I agree. Like, a lot of this is very hip-hop friendly. Hold on, did we just have a bunch of pauses in this track here? Wow. Let me try to loop that. Okay, it did not go with disco. Just a little more. Wow. mean, this is straight up some kind of Nintendo game. Wow. I'm speechless. A sip to that one. It's interesting because it started so thought-provokingly just by having all these like silent gaps. Like, what's that about? Dang, da, 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 da. I love that part. If I can get in the looper. No, it's really hard to capture that in the looper. Yeah, let me try. I'm not sure I can nail this one. I agree. I was thinking the same thing. Maybe it's just strings to break it up. That one is a hard one to crack. I was actually thinking the patch mode, like, but I couldn't. It's tricky to get Apple Music to sync with your looper. Moving on, Beats with Soundpaint by Moondust. is trap, yeah, but it's a little bit like vintage trap almost. Thank you, Steve. It's kind of you. I see. This is a cool groove. For me, I would love to see it evolve more, but I get it. It's just a trap groove. It's a trap groove. Let's see if I can grab it in the looper here. That's Soundpaint for you. Just have fun. Be free. Love it. It made me think like maybe in the future, imagine like if we could spar with each other online and create things in real time. I have these VR headsets that I occasionally use. I don't think it's quite there yet, but was speaking to a friend of mine who's deep in technology this week, and we're trying to explore different ideas of like what would this become like once it becomes more tactile haptic feedback. Imagine the ways we'll create music. I always thought about Soundpaint, by the way, designed for that. This is why we have horizontal sliders as well. It's sort of designed to be used in a larger virtual space as well. Imagine that down the line. Yeah. User demos. We have one left here. Thank you so much, by the way. This is so much fun for me just to create with you guys. We heard this one earlier. These beautiful flutes. We got through them on. This is such a good, like, it's almost like the end credits of a movie. Should it be the end credits of this stream as well? Have we reached the end? You guys have any questions? Let me know. I will read the chat for a few minutes. Steve says, I was jamming along with that with Spitfire's audio symphonic motions. Sounded epic. I'm glad. All things can coexist peacefully, you know? Carl said, had a question about these drops and discords. Carl, are you talking about like dropping music pieces in Discord? That's normally where people just drop the MP3s so I can put them into the live stream here. It's the easiest thing. It's easier for me to have them inside of the player here as well. Tony asked, any secret orange 808 gems that we should know? So, Tony, let me just, forgive me just for rambling just for a second, because the 808 is integral in many ways. I believe it's almost running in the background here as well. The 808, when it came out, was kind of late to the game because it was a drum machine, but everyone else was starting to go with samples, and this thing came out and was all analog and didn't really take off. And I'm sure you know the history of the 808, but it was picked up by Afrika Bambaataa and a couple of other hip hoppers that actually couldn't afford their sampling drum machine, so they just used what they had. And out of that was a rediscovery of a machine that actually got discontinued, that didn't make it in the first place. Dare I say the greatest analog synth drum machine of all time, at least the most influential when it comes to the fact that it's been haunting the charts for the last 40 years. I say that because the 808, I believe, has 15 or 16 different sounds, and the library we did that I did myself was over 18,000 samples, just in deep appreciation of this machine. You see, with the 808, every single sound in it has its own chip, and as the current 808 machines, the vintage machines, slowly start to degrade, each of them get unique colors. And I found one specific machine that I really, really liked and went very deep on it. Let me just play a couple of patches from it. I love that you're asking this question, just like selfishly, like, oh, it can be so much more. I promise you, once it gets 808 this year, I want to do a day where I only play with the 808, and I want to show you what I mean. In fact, let me just clean up my loopy here and jam a little bit with it so you can see it. You may think it's just a drum machine, but for me, I look at it as a full-on synthesizer. Let me show you what I mean. So for example, forgive me for just cutting off this for a second. So this is there are many different 808s inside of this library. I recorded, I think, over 23 different kind of 808s, all deep sampled with up to 1,000 samples. For example, just for a hi-hat. But here, this doesn't sound like an 808. It sounds like some kind of motion pictures thing. I remember visiting Hans Zimmer once, and he spoke greatly about the 808, how much he uses in his scores as well. So this one here. So this was, for example, was the 808, but recorded through natural tape delay. And it may not sound like a lot, but once you have this like Hear how natural it is? Almost like someone playing real hi-hat. I mean, yeah, let's just make something. No, Solo, you made me think about one thing with your comment. You said, I like watching people process making music because it's different from how I do it. I usually create a chord progression or just sing it and then match what I sing. I want to share something with you just because we talked about Pat Metheny before. This was an interview I saw. I'll just post in the chat right now with Pat Metheny. This shit. Yeah, we're good. Okay. I saw this week. This is just a link where he talks about strings. It's actually like a little bit of a promotion, but he talks about the process of the way he thinks about music as well, that he has to hear it in his mind before he does it. I've heard Simmer say the same thing, Chris Young that I mentioned earlier. It seems to be a very common premise about like thinking about things in your mind before we actually do it. So I love, for example, that you say like match what I sing. I think singing, I wish I was a better singer, guys. I was singing all the time. Like there's something so essential about like the melody coming out of the mouth. I would imagine, I know for long, like Max Martin and a lot of even the great producers, they actually sing pretty well. They need to be able to sing it out, particularly with pop music and stuff that's more catchy. Super, super important. So I appreciate, man. And I agree with you. Like, I think it's very important that we try to look at different people's flows. I'm completely flow state. I don't have any particular method that I use. As you can see, I just one thing becomes the next thing, and all of a sudden it becomes something, and that's just how I operate. But I love your singing. Keep doing that. Super, super essential. Anyway, just back to the 808. To answer your question, Tony, there are so many different ways it can be played. Let me just play a couple of the patches here because they demonstrate different sides to it. Like this one for me, this was inspired a little bit by Ludwig Göransson's Tenet score. This is all 808. I mean, this is what I mean when I talk about it being a synthesizer. This is a full-fledged score just in the arpeggiator. We don't need more than that. That's it. That's your score right there. No more. Tony, as you may know, the 808, originally the bass drum is not that deep. But in Soundpaint, we have infinite fidelity, so the bass drum I'm playing down here is multiple octaves below what it actually is in the real 808. You may also know that the bass drum in the 808, the original one, didn't sustain for that long. That's obviously different when we're pulling it down 2 octaves here, but just try to listen, man. So when it comes to how I treat low content, I don't operate with engineering in mind. It just needs to sound good to my ear. So I'm worried about things right now. The signal is a little bit hot, like it's almost distorting, and I generally don't like things distorting. But sometimes we want to serve on the border between what's like distorted and non-distorted. That can be the sweet spot. But I think it's remarkable that we're just playing an 808 through an arpeggiator and nothing else, and we have a full-fledged score because it's just sampled with love, man. Let me just see if I can pollute this a little more. But it's funny, like, I feel like no matter what I'm adding to it right now, it just like, it was already telling me like, hey, this is enough. Learning to listen to the samples is super important. I often find when we discuss with the community that a lot of members in the community is like, well, I wanted to do this. And we're like, well, if you want to play crazy saxophone, we need to have to sample it that way, like, and sometimes layering is not a good idea. In fact, I think it was kind of enough what we already had. Like that's a lot right there. So just, yeah, you know, it's, I mean, the 808 is endless. Hi, Cat's Meow, I wonder what that is. And I mean, together with the 909, we could debate which one has the best clap sound, but just reading through the comments here. Tony says, interesting hearing how you approach low frequency. We talked about that one, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't, frequency, it just needs to sound good. If it sounds good, it is good. I will say beware of compressors. I'm generally not big on compressors. I try to avoid them at most times. They can be cool for little accentuations, but music, just like humans, are best when they're uncompressed. Anyway, we've been rolling for 2.5 hours. I don't know, 5 shots in, something like that. This is my 4th or my 5th, I can't remember. You guys have anything, let me know in the chat. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I realized today was a strange, chaotic stream. Maybe I should have played disco guitars more, maybe less. We have a full video coming out this week. Disco guitars is going to be released this coming week here as well. And thank you so much for dropping by the live chat here and just having fun. I love your use of Troels writing me in Danish, like a little delay. Yeah, it's a Danish saying for, you know, just another one, just another little shot. I find in Danish like drinking lore, there's a lot of excuses for just another one. You know, it never stops. Cheers, guys. And I have to say, it's strangely alluring to be drinking on a Saturday afternoon. Well, thank you, Carl. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone, for just joining this stream here. And there was another. Do I just say purposefully so I get to drink more? What do you think, Carl? Is that the next like drinking excuse? Anyway, thanks so much. Looking forward to see you guys. Join us on Discord. Drop your demos there. Just have fun. Take it easy. Don't worry too much about the state of the world right now. It's all just a temporary flux. There are so many more things that are important. Cool. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.